Hello, once again, everybody, and welcome to Terminal Vocation. I'm Deacon Mark.
And I'm Aaron.
And we're back, and we're excited to be with you all again. We're going to continue our series of talking about the top 5 relationship challenges. So the last couple of weeks, we covered money, we covered kids. Tonight, we're going to be talking about sex. And just the ways that it gets corrupted, just the ways it becomes a problem. So, of course, since we are going to talk about a topic like that, it's worth saying we don't intend to talk about anything particularly graphic. It's not that kind of conversation. But depending on where you are and who you're listening with, I think we're going to keep the content PG, but you might want to listen with headphones or,
clinical,
doing something else. So,
clinical.
So we'll just kind of leave that at that, and then next week and the week after, we'll continue the last 2 episodes. Next week on family of origin, i.e., in-laws, yeah, everything, and then religion, politics. So those, no shortage of hot button issues
on terminal vocation. Okay,
so that's upcoming, but let's just chat about how was your week? What was going on?
Well, we're in the throes of getting ready to close the library down for the summer. So all the books are returning home. Well, not all of them. That's actually the problem. But but we're doing pretty well. We have a little race set up between the different grade levels. Kids are coming in. Once they've cleared their record, they get candy. So they're very motivated to come see us at this point in the year. Kids who have never checked out a book but have a clear record are coming in to get their candy. So that's great.
Are you checking to make sure their record is still clear tomorrow? Do they get another candy?
Well, they can't. So they can't check any more books out. And then we do have a method because we're smart and we were middle schoolers once ourselves.
Right?
Yes, we have a method of marking in the notes field who's come. So that is kind of a funny moment when someone comes back and we pull it up and we're like, "Oh, you came in yesterday."
And good news, your record is still clear. Bad news is
no
your
candy.
Jolly Rancher is gone.
Correct. And that is one of the candies, Jolly Ranchers and Dum Dums.
Yeah, so this week we had our youth group. We had senior night. So this is our last youth group of the year. It's fun. We do a dinner, and then we have a sort of game show in the style of the Newlywed Game.
I love that game.
Ask the parents questions about their graduate and see if it matches. What was your graduate's favorite stuffy, stuffed animal growing up? What was the first thing you remember them saying they wanted to be when they grew up? That's always fun because I get to tell the story of the first thing I ever said that I wanted to be was an Orkin man. And we're not sponsored by Orkin. This is not an advertisement, though. They can certainly contact us if they like to.
They did have the cool trucks.
I wanted to drive a white pickup truck. That was all. I had no idea what it took to be an Orkin man or what you had to do.
Or all the chemicals involved that had to be fabulous.
Or the gross bugs involved. And I'm not particularly squeamish. That wouldn't have been a problem necessarily. But
big dreams.
But driving a white pickup and the hard hat. Are you kidding me? A hard hat and a pickup truck? It was like a buy one, get one free. Anyway, so I always get to tell that story. But it's neat to just kind of wish the seniors well. And sometimes, there's those fun tears as everyone's saying goodbye. It's just sort of neat to see the relationships that they've all developed with each other over the years. And it's good that it's sometimes hard to say goodbye.
Yeah,
right?
it means it meant something.
Good happened.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's been a little bit of the week here. So wanted to touch on this one other subject, though, before we jump into our topic. Did you hear last week? And, we live in an area where we're in Northern Virginia, as I think some people know. And we go to church with and live near people who are involved with Blue Origin and orbital sciences. And, so a lot of these government and rocket science type places. So I know people that work for Blue Origin. We were talking about the explosion last week.
Yes.
So we'll put a link in the show notes. But last week, Blue Origin was doing a test fire, which means they're basically turning on the engines and making sure everything happens as it should. So nobody's in the launch vehicle or whatever. So there's no astronauts involved. But the test failed. the test
they did not pass.
In an explosion. And, if you talk to folks at Blue Origin, they'll say, it's why we do the test. Like,
of course,
we hoped that the rocket would have at least lifted off and not destroyed the launch pad. So there's a lot of, what wasn't part of the test, which is this massive construction that now has to be rebuilt.
Yeah.
But some of the comments I was reading, and I think this is kind of right, and we forget this sometimes when something doesn't go perfectly, we forget the fact that that's why we test.
Oh, so important. For me, it's just a direct connection to parenting or students at school. And I just don't think kids have enough time to mess things up at home. We don't tolerate that well, or in school. We don't tolerate that. We want them to achieve, and instead of just letting them learn from those mistakes. I think it's challenging as a parent too, because of course we always said, yeah, we want them to make the mistakes while they're with us, but kind of you really don't want them to make mistakes ever, which isn't realistic, of course.
Yeah, but that's why we give kids homework.
Sure.
Why did we give kids homework? Well, because we want you to work on, I'm thinking, in terms of like math, right?
Yep.
Why do you have you do these 10 problems at home? So you're not right there raising your hand at every single step, but you're trying to do it yourself like you would if you were on the test.
Struggle a little bit.
And when I was growing up, homework was always just a completion grade, right? It's, a 1 or a 0. You did it or you didn't. You weren't graded on whether everything was right. You were graded on the fact that you tried, and that then we would go over it in class and you would figure out, what did I do wrong? How do I make it better? And so we need to learn from that failure. And I think we get so concerned with doing it perfect.
Yes.
The other thing that I think this brings up then is just from an independence perspective is letting kids, giving them room to fail, like not just on homework and stuff like that, but we were talking earlier about letting our kids start going like to the library. We live within about a mile of our local public library, and it's all like parkland between us and it, pretty safe place to go. We're an equal distance across a busy street to a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Both attractive to the kids for different reasons. But, we made the library was sort of a good test bed. Mm-hmm. Because if you got lost between here and the library, you were in a safe place. If something goes wrong between here and the 7-Eleven, it could mean, you're Frogger in the middle of that busy street.
Yes.
It could mean you ran into somebody you shouldn't have ran into in the 7-Eleven. Any number of things that could go wrong. So it's like, well, maybe when you're old, obviously, they're out driving cars now. They can stop at 7-Eleven, I suppose, whenever they want. But just giving them that space that if something went wrong, it was going wrong in a more controlled fashion.
Yeah, that's true. I do remember the first time that our eldest son biked over to the library by himself. I loaded the 3 younger kids in the minivan about 5 minutes later and drove over and checked the bike rack that he had made it there in my nervous way. I never did that again, but
the first
child. Yeah, he got it. He did.
And good. He didn't know you were following him.
He does now, though,
well,
if he's listening.
Those stories are funnier, though, when you're 20-something than when you're 12, right?
Amen.
So I think I think it's a good lesson, a good reminder of, as parents, just giving kids room to fail, giving kids room to test, to try new things. And I mean, sort of the maybe last aspect of this is, why did Blue Origin have a failure? Because they're trying to do something really hard.
Amen. Yes.
And, your kids, you want them to have big dreams. You want them to shoot for the stars, not to strain that metaphor too much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that might mean that they're not always going to be number 1 in the class, or
right.
They might not always make that team. They might not always be the lead in the school play. But it's better to have tried for it than to have not.
Yeah. We have a friend who's a college professor. It's a little bit of a tangent maybe, but remember him saying, kids would come to him and say, why am I not getting an A in your class? And he would say, because you're a B student in this subject. Not everything, we're not going to succeed at everything, and that's okay. You'll probably get an A in the opposite class, you know?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, that's okay.
And if I gave you an A on this, you might stop trying hard enough to do B work on the next assignment, because it's going to get harder.
Yeah.
But if you realize now that there's something that you're short on, then you're going to pay that much more attention. And so that's the other thing that testing does for us.
Preparatory.
Points out, if I've messed this up, then I'm going to make this better, right? Like, I mean, weightlifting and, all those sorts of things. How does weightlifting work? Well, it's tearing muscle fiber in order to rebuild it stronger. Scars become, the thickest part of your skin. We weld things together. That becomes stronger than other spots sometimes. So it's important to have those failures and learn from them. So, well, have we put off the inevitable?
Let's just dive in with both feet.
So we're going to jump into talking about, again, one of the top 5 challenges in the ways that sex becomes corrupted within relationships. And if, we went a little bit biblical to Garden of Eden, right? What was the first thing that happened to Adam and Eve when they bit the fruit? Was they realized they were naked and they were ashamed. There's something kind of innate to human nature that recognizes not really the rightness of being ashamed at who we are, but it does rear its head. And so I think that's kind of why this becomes such a difficult or taboo topic to talk about, and makes it all the more important to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we ignore it, then that's going to be a problem. And I think this kind of came up when we were engaged.
Oh my
goodness. We started taking classes in natural family planning, and we'll talk more about NFP in a minute. But do you remember our first teacher?
So we had a series of, as I remember it, let's say there were 6 classes or 4 classes to learn natural family planning. And back in that day, you were using a mercury thermometer and these yellow charts or white charts to chart stuff. We'll talk about that later in the episode. But we had to go to these classes in order to get married in the Catholic Church. And our first 2 instructors is a husband and wife, which was typical from the Couple to Couple League. And it's a great organization, first of all. These 2 people, God love them, obviously felt that they had a need to teach NFP, but they could not utter any of the words without being embarrassed. Yeah. And if you're going to have a conversation about this stuff, you got to be able to say the words. Plus, I think the guy mispronounced a couple, and then that was distracting. So I think, as I remember, we attended like 2 of these classes, or about half of the classes. We came for the 3rd one, and they weren't there. We had written the time down wrong, and we had to change instructors.
And we basically restarted, I think, because...
Yeah, I didn't remember that, but we attended the last couple of another one, or anyway, we attended 2 more from this other couple who were great. They were just, here's what we're talking about. Let's just all be adults. It's kind of funny. Here's the, tried to find humor. It was night and day and so much better.
And that's why it felt like we were restarting this, because I feel like I remember him at the very beginning saying, we're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about things like this and that.
Yeah.
And
bodily functions.
And we're all just going to be okay with it, right?
Yep.
And everyone's like,
yes, we are.
Praise God. Like, we're just, we don't need to be, 7th graders about it.
Squeamish.
We don't need to be squeamish about it, so that's, that was really good, so that we'll try and carry that through.
Let's hope we can channel
today
them
as we're talking about that. So we're going to use some words in a clinical way, from time to time throughout this, and that's will be our goal, is to do it professionally.
Good.
So now the last thing about, as you maybe a starting point, the last couple of weeks we kind of took these challenges and we walked through kind of a chronological progression from dating to engagement to marriage. We're going to change that a little bit with respect to sex. The reason we're going to do that is, 1, ideally, sex shouldn't be happening until after you're married. But 2, really what we're going to focus on is different ways that sex presents itself as a corruption or a challenge. And those kind of 3 categories of corruptions are going to be abuse, use or abuse, infidelity, and weaponization. So we're going to kind of talk about those three. But I mentioned, not kind of going in chronological order, so we should be clear. Like, we believe that sex is intended to be used within the bounds of marriage. And so let's kind of just talk about that for a second, because we know that that's not something that our culture, broadly speaking, agrees with.
Sure.
But we believe that not just that it's right from a moral standpoint, but that there's actually human, physical, natural consequences to premarital sex. So a couple of reasons for this. Number one, there are some studies. So we've got a link, again, we'll put it in the show notes, Institute for Family Studies. Has published a summary of research around the increased divorce rate for people with premarital sex.
Well, and it was interesting because premarital sex increases the chance of divorce between twofold and threefold. So there's statistically significant.
So that's extreme. That's one reason why. Or the second is sex should have two complementary aspects to it. Sex should always remain both unitive, joining the two together, and procreative, naturally ordered towards the giving of life, right? That's why our bodies were made the way they are. That act is naturally intended for procreation. But we've been given the gift of being able to enjoy it, being able to find some bonding that comes from it, which adds this unitive aspect. But when we try and separate those, we run into problems. And premarital sex is going to do that.
Sure.
There's not many people before they're married who are seeking conception. Right?
Actively trying to conceive, right.
The other aspect of this unitive and procreative is when we start having sex that involves contraception, it's going to be a way of telling the other person, I want to share most of myself with you, but not all. Right? I'm going to withhold my fertility. And that just runs sort of counter to everything that relationships and especially a marriage is about, right? The whole point of our vows at marriage is that I'm really offering you all of me. Not I'm offering you 99% of me.
Well, I think even just the phrases like, I want to have sex with you, or I want to have a child with you, they're very different, right? They connote something different. It's sort of a longevity aspect with, I want a kid that looks like you. I want to raise this kid with you. I want your values on this, reflected in this family. It's a much longer commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful statement, right? That I accept everything about this act. And it doesn't mean that every incidence of the marital act has to say, if there's no conception, then we've done something wrong. We don't mean that
of course.
At all.
Right.
But what we do mean is that every act is open to it, right? That we say, I'm not withholding this from you. I'm totally open to whatever may come from this.
Yeah, in God's time.
Okay, third sort of natural element to this, and this is going to get as well a little bit into some of the unitive positive aspects of it, is there are neurochemical changes that take place in our brain, right?
Yeah.
It's like a drug. It's like, anything else that creates that kind of pleasure. All those pleasure centers in the brain get activated. So the endorphins, the oxytocin, the dopamine, all those, the brain says, oh, here you go. Have a huge dose of these.
And so much of it, too, relates to bonding between those two people.
Sure.
And that's so healthy and so great for a marriage and a family. Not so great if you're with somebody not for the long haul.
Yeah. So now you've associated all of those feelings, all of those, endorphins, all of those hormones with that person. And so when that relationship ruptures, because there's no commitment behind it, then it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. Then it just makes that breakup all the harder. And it's not, we were just talking about doing hard things. Doing hard things is good, but not trying to seek out damage and emotional damage. That's not a thing that we're seeking out.
Yeah.
So, okay, one more quick word before we get into this corruptions about NFP. We mentioned natural family planning, or NFP as we'll call it throughout this. So this is not the old rhythm method. This is not the old calendar method. This is the, not the finger in the air. Oh, it's been about 4 weeks.
Right.
There's some serious science behind this.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like so much now has changed. A lot of people are wearing, I can never remember the name of the rings that people,
rings,
or
and
rings and
brands,
whatever.
That's
yes.
sort of the well-known.
But this does all of this for you. It tracks these signs for you. But back in the day, it was, you would take your temperature. I would take my temperature before I got out of bed. So there's a resting basal temperature. You're looking for different signs, and all of these several signs are pointing to a time of fertility. And so then great, we're trying to conceive a child. This is the time. Or, gosh, somebody's lost their job. We're not doing that right now. We're going to abstain during this time. And so you're making choices about your family and when it should grow and when it shouldn't. But then ultimately being willing to accept whatever result happens.
Right.
Kids, no kids.
And I think one of the things that we've said between us, and I think other people would say this as well, that's powerful about this form, and this is something that I think you and I, we sort of talked about this distinction, like we would call this almost more properly a birth control as opposed to contraception.
Yeah.
But this isn't really contraception. It's not against conception. It does say, well, right now would be a time to abstain, but it's not doing anything that's counter to it. But the reason it's so successful is because of the science. The reason it makes for such successful marriages is because of the communication.
Sure. You have to be in such regular communication about where the woman is in her cycle, and are we ready to conceive another child, or no, I'm not, why not, should we, And so those conversations happening pretty much every month is actually an incredible connection with your spouse. I think also for me, just trying to understand how my body worked, because I think I got to, what was I, 30 when I married you, not knowing any of this information until I took NFP, or knowing very little of it, maybe some of it. So it is really an amazing. So we encourage you to check it out if you don't already know.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe last thought, those sort of scientific advantages that they brought to you in terms of understanding what's going on with your body.
Oh, yeah. So I was later. So it's funny, later in life, as I was getting ready for menopause, my cycle was very crazy and I was tracking it. And I went into my OBGYN and showed him these charts. And he is a doctor who knows how to read them. Most regular doctors don't. You usually have to go to a special facility. But so he was looking at them. He's like, oh, no, this is exactly what I would expect to see. And he showed me how things were changing to indicate that menopause was coming. And so he was saying, gosh, if you hadn't been tracking, we would have had to do about $10,000 worth of tests to figure out what you were telling me versus knowing what's going on. And he's like, I can see it right here. It's all totally normal. No tests. So it remains very good information throughout a lifetime.
Absolutely. So let's talk about these three ways that sex becomes corrupted within relationships. And the first area is use and abuse. And abuse, hopefully patently obvious to everybody, right? There is such a thing as marital rape. Our spouse is not there for us to take advantage of.
Sure. For
us to abuse, to do that.
Yeah, none of that should happen.
None of that should happen. And is absolutely wrong, is criminal. Flat, period. But there's still ways that we use the other person that is a corruption of what marital love should be. And to be a little nerdy and philosophical about it, if you go back to Aristotle, he talked about different definitions of friendship. And he would talk about friendships of utility, where, well, okay, I'm friends with Joe at work because he gives me widgets and I take those widgets to the shop floor and we turn them into whatever, right? So we're friendly while we're at work, but we're friendly because we have a mutual benefit out of it. It's a friendship of utility. But our marriage should not be that. Our marriage should be, based on self-gift, love, the highest form of love. And so we should always be striving to attain that.
Mm-hmm.
So the temptation is, well, I like sex. It feels good. So I want to do it, and my spouse should be providing that for me.
Sure.
And we have to really make sure that we're not using our spouse to just make us feel good, right? And we look past this sometimes. We say, well, it's mutual, right? We're both getting something out of it. And jokes aside about, men and women and
sure.
marital love, we still have to recognize that there's a danger when we're starting to put the focus on what I want out of it instead of what I'm giving to it.
Absolutely.
Right. And then the last sort of element of this, and this can sometimes be mutual as well, it's not just one person taking. But if we're trying to be faithful to our beliefs and the church's stance on birth control, or contraception, really better stated, as we mentioned earlier, then there's this thought that, well, if we're at a fertile time in the month and we're abstaining, we'll just do other things that bring us pleasure. And the problem is those things, and we'll talk about those as well a little bit in terms of some of the other sorts of corruption, but those other types of sex that are not traditional are really an abuse, a way of using the other person because we're withholding our fertility from them.
We've decided it's not time to have kids, but instead of playing Scrabble, we're doing other things. And
if I'm telling my spouse, I can't abstain from this for a couple days, it's too important to me to feel this way, that I can't find an intimate connection with you outside of this, then that's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah.
Right? If this is the only way that I can
connect,
express my love for you.
Right.
And, there's different love languages, right? But
this is mine.
This is my love language. I'm a physical touch sort of person.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, let me give you a back rub and that. Okay, so I think that's sort of the use and abuse side of things. Let's talk about the second corruption, which is infidelity.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, yeah, duh. If you took a survey of people saying, okay, what would be the number one thing that would make you want to leave your spouse, or that would be a non-negotiable for you? Adultery, right?
It's a big one.
Adultery, and it's I've talked to couples who have broken up over it. I've talked to couples who have stayed together from it, and it's a testament to the fact that they recognize that there was something more to their relationship beyond just sex.
Yeah.
That there was something going wrong in their relationship that really had nothing to do with how that person acted out. And they resolved those things. It's hard.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's hard. But we've talked about this, I think, on past episodes too, right? Like of being careful of those things that lead to it.
Right. Don't put yourself in the situation.
Don't put yourself, the work husband, the work wife.
Oh, I do not like those terms.
Yes. Yeah, I don't even like the terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
But two of the other things that I think are leading indicators or problems from an infidelity perspective: pornography, strip clubs, masturbation. These are all ways that you're probably using, certainly pornography and strip clubs, you're absolutely using images and other people for your own arousal. It's probably happening within masturbation as well, that you're thinking of something other than.
Right.
And so these are sort of in this category, and of course they're all as well damaging the unitive aspect, right? We're not
together.
We're not together.
Sure.
they're not procreative acts.
Right.
So, we're not using our sexual faculty for what it's naturally ordered to do.
Yeah. Very isolating in some ways. Ironic to think about being isolated in a strip club, but you're really away. And gosh, with somebody's kid, but anyway, different topic.
Yeah. No, but those are,
yeah,
lonely places. Right?
Yes.
They're like, talk about people who talk about, I'm not alone, but I'm lonely.
Right.
I think that's be a picture of a strip club next to the definition of lonely for that. Okay. Last sort of corruption, weaponization. I think this is an interesting one because I don't think we think of it as easily as we think of the other two. But anytime we start to use sex as a tool to get what we want from the other person, I'm not going to have sex with you until you make an appointment to have the oil changed.
Right. Right. Or whatever. Right.
Whatever
Fill in the
thing
blank
may be.
of, which really indicates that there's some anger issue going on outside of this, but this has now become the currency.
Right. This is how I'm going to do it. And, shame on both parties. If one person feels like that's the only option they have, it seems like a very nuclear option. It's possible that they've tried other things and those things aren't working.
Sure.
So not to entirely, not to fault entirely the person
right
who makes that ultimatum, but it's a indication of some things.
Of some other problems. Yeah, that need to be talked about.
Yeah. But the other side of it, right, is an unreasonable demand. So there's this concept in church circles of something called the marital debt, right? So when we make our vows, it's a self-gift. We're giving of ourselves to each other, and we're supposed to make ourselves available to the other person. But there's an equal requirement upon the spouse to die to the needs of the other one, to be subject to the needs of the other one. As a husband, I should serve you as Christ served the church, right? Which means ultimately I'm willing to die for you. So if I want to have sex and you have a headache, then forcing you to do that would not be dying to you.
Right.
It would be, quite the opposite. And so we can't have just one of those two things in isolation. We can't just take advantage of this idea of marital debt without also acknowledging that we owe that person,
of course,
sacrifice.
Right. And ideally, if we're being stereotypical and the woman has a headache, like that can't happen every night. Like something's got to, again, it speaks to a larger problem, either medically or a problem within the relationship.
And that's where I think they kind of
go together.
Those weapons are kind of congruous, right?
Yep.
If I'm trying to demand it of you, then if you've had a headache every night for a week,
that's an indicator.
Let's go see a doctor.
Right. What's going on?
Right.
Right.
Let's take some Advil and talk in the morning. But I think those are almost always an indication of other things going wrong. Within the marriage, and I think that just speaks to the fact that sex is just one form of intimacy we should be having within the marriage, within our relationship. Right?
One of many, yeah.
And I can't tell you how many couples I've talked to that are getting ready for marriage and they're cohabitating, or they're talking about premarital sex. And one thing we should talk about is the test drive analogy.
Wouldn't buy a car without getting a test drive.
Right. So first of all, I mean, people are not cars.
So true.
Right. So let's not take away someone's dignity by comparing them to an inanimate object.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
And you have a whole lifetime to figure out together how to make that act of intimacy as good as it needs to be for the both of you.
Right.
But I'll talk to these young couples and they're okay sharing that type of intimacy, living together, sleeping together. I say, have you all ever prayed together? No.
Now that's uncomfortable.
That's uncomfortable, right?
Right? And it can be. I mean, to be fair, yeah, absolutely. But it does seem like we should be willing to do that first. Yeah.
So recognizing that, we use sex sometimes as a substitute for the other forms of intimacy that we're too uncomfortable to do.
Yep.
Right. I don't want to have a define the relationship talk. So I'll just escalate the physical aspects of the relationship.
It's almost like it can be almost like a shorthand. Like, you should know I love you,
Right. And I think that happens to a lot. And again, if we're being stereotypical, right, it's like the guy doesn't want to have that conversation. They have sex. The girl says, well, he must really love me.
Sure. Right.
So he doesn't have to say it because he showed it. Except he didn't. he avoided showing it by doing something that just made him feel good in the moment. So, so those sorts of things, these corruptions often point to some other lack of intimacy somewhere within the relationship. So, last thoughts on this?
Well, no, I feel like we covered everything. Kind of a tricky topic, but we'll see how that goes.
But we crushed it, like always.
No doubt.
So, well, thanks everyone for joining us again. If you have other topics you'd like to hear us talk about, send them to terminalvocation@gmail.com. As always, please like, subscribe, follow this, whatever it is that you need to do on whatever platform you're on. You've been listening to Terminal Vocation, a VoFam production. I'm Deacon Mark, along with my wife and co-host Erin. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks, guys.